Okay, welcome everyone to Site Building Live. We're so glad you're here with us today. But before we get started, we did just want to say that our hearts go out to all the people of Ukraine who are affected by the war. Nonetheless, we're glad you could be with us. Our goal today is to show you all the different ways that refined sites can help you get more from Confluence and Jira Cloud. We hope you leave here with inspiration and new ideas for how you can use refined sites in ways you may not have thought of yet. But before we get started, just some quick webinar housekeeping. This session is being recorded. When it's over, we'll post it to our Team 22 site that we're going to tell you more about in a bit, team22.refine.com. The chat function is not on, but you should see a field to leave questions. Leave those as you think of them, and we'll do our best to address them all at the end of the chat, at the end of the webinar. But whatever we don't get to, we'll also try to address those on that team site, team22.refined.com. And of course, everyone's microphone will be muted throughout the webinar. But we've got a great agenda for you today. First up, our CEO and co-founder, Emil, will share some company updates, and he's going to give you a preview of a few product features on the roadmap. Then our product manager, Eric Hong for Cloud, will talk about utilizing multiple refined sites and give you some tools to decide on the right number of sites for you. Then we have customer experience manager, Maria Heij. She's going to talk about how to design sites that meet the needs of your audience. Then we have our COO, Janette Hagerlund, who's going to show you how we use Refine at Refined and walk you through the strategy behind 3 of our sites. And then we'll wrap up with customer success specialist Raj Sehmi with 2 sections. First, he's going to show us how to build special purpose sites for one-off needs, things that might be less permanent than a traditional use case like an intranet or a documentation site. And then finally, he'll show us how refined sites may actually be able to replace legacy software in your tech stack. So first, we'll hand it over to Emil, who's going to deliver his keynote.
Thank you, Philip. And hi, everyone. Refined started as a theming and structuring tool on server more than a decade ago. But now cloud has opened up new opportunities for Refined to evolve into something more for us and our customers. And that is a site builder that lets you build as many sites as you need to, from a single Confluence and Jira instance, to meet the needs of your organization's all end users, whether they are internal or external. That's what we're hoping to show you today, how versatile sites can be and how they can help you do more with your Atlassian tools. But before we jump into our sessions today, I have a couple of announcements to make. During the last couple of years, we've been investing a lot into cloud R&D, which we now see the result of. New cloud sites are popping up from all around the world. Earlier in January this year, we reached a big milestone of 1,000 active customer sites. Today, 10 weeks later, we have added almost another 200 sites. The team at Refine have done an amazing job, and we are now ready to take our cloud product further. This year, we are focusing on making Refine cloud ready for all our larger companies. Here comes a couple of updates that I also think SMB companies will find interesting. First out, we were one of the first vendors joining Atlassian Cloud Fortified program, and I can now share that all refined cloud apps are in the program. We are currently working on a custom cookie banner feature to make it easy for our customers to adjust their cookie banner to their exact use of cookies. In parallel, we are also building out data residency in Europe. We aim to release support for data residency in Europe later this year. And up next is to get through an information security certification with an aim to go through the ISO 27001 certification next year. We think design is the key to helping you harness the full power of Refined. So I'm very excited to share that we are introducing a design consultation service to help our customers and partners to build better sites from a UX and company branding perspective. We want to make it easy for our customers and partners to raise the UX and visual looks for all their sites. In this program, we will help you with UX recommendation in terms of navigation, site structure, layout patterns, and usability. Also go through best practices for layout, images, and icons, and give guidance on best use of Refined for layout and theming purposes. This beta program is free. Sign up on team22.refined.com site. The spots in the beta program are limited to 30, so make sure to reserve your spot. Let's have a look of what's coming your way in cloud. I'm going to share 3 features that are in the short-term roadmap and soon to be released. We're going to start with the feedback feature. We want to connect the end users with the content writer in a better way. Content writers need to know if their content is meeting the needs of their audience or not. And this is especially useful for intranet and documentation use cases. And what you see right now is a mock-up of how this feature will work. So we are looking at the page, and in the bottom right, you see a feedback button. And if you click that button, an end user can describe their feedback and send it in. This feedback will only be visible to users that have edit permission on this page. As a content writer, I can now browse the incoming feedback through my avatar menu. And all feedback items have a status, so it's easy to see what's attended and what's not attended. It's also make it possible to collaborate over the feedback with multiple content writers. This feature will be able to be turned on a space-by-space basis. So it's done through the space settings on each space. Next up, table of content. When the table of content feature is activated on a page, all the titles of that page will be shown in an intuitive list to the right of the text. This is very handy when you have a lot of content and a lot of content sections on your page, especially good for the documentation use case. And similar to the feedback feature, you can also turn it on a space-by-space basis. And finally, I want to share a site switcher feature that is coming your way. This is a similar concept as we have on our on-prem products. So you can connect your other Refined sites in a global navigation in the top left corner where you have the site switcher menu. But you can also connect other external sites. And this is a great feature if you want to create that high-level navigation for your users to get the full picture of what actually are available. For intranets, for example, you can also add a link to your time reporting system into that menu. All right, now it's time to jump into the first site building session. It will be held by our Cloud PM, Eric. So over to you, Eric.
Hi, thank you, Emil. Indeed, a very exciting roadmap that we have, and very looking forward to getting those features out to our customers. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to join us today. Today, I'm going to be giving an introduction to sites. So essentially, I'm going to talk about considerations to keep in mind when you're deciding whether you want one site or multi-sites. I'm going to walk through an example of a company that has gone with the multi-site approach. and I will go over some tips in terms of when you might want to go single site versus multi-site. So we all know that structuring, navigation, and theming significantly improve the user experience for your users that are looking at content that is coming from Confluence and Jira. Sites, though, they add another dimension to your content strategy, because with Refined, you can build as many sites as you want to show the content from your Atlassian instance. So for those of you that are directly responsible for building sites, or you may be involved in the process or the decision making, you have probably asked the question, how many sites do we need? And that's an interesting question that I think a lot of us ask, even at Refine when we start with our sites. But before we do that, I want to show you some interesting data. So 25 sites, that is the highest number of sites that any one of our customers have. And as a comparison, over on server, we have around the same number of sites as well for the highest number of sites. A third of our customers actually have 2+ sites. So how many sites do you need? I wish I could give you a magic number or a magic solution, but unfortunately I can't. Because what I have to say is that it depends. There's multiple factors that come into play here. So what's relevant for one small business, for example, may not be relevant for the next. And the same goes for enterprise businesses. So it's going to depend on audience. So you may have an executive team, the C-suite, that may have a separate site. You may have HR teams or internal or external customers that may need separate sites. The purpose is really important to think about. So do you have a site that caters to external customers in terms of support? Or do you have, for example, more product documentation that could live on another site as well? Your organization and the size of it is also a factor here. You may have divisions. You may have, for example, a division here in Sweden and a division in the US, and then you may want to separate the sites for the employees there. Whether you're a small business or bigger business, that can also impact into whether or not you want, for example, a one-stop shop for your site where everyone is going to the same location. And finally, geography matters as well, and languages. Essentially, multiple geographies mean you may need separate sites. So here is a fictional example of a company called Cirrus. They have 700 employees, and they're looking to grow to 1,000 by 2025. They are a life documentation product and service, and I dreamed that up in my head. I don't even know if this is a good product market fit, but for all intents and purposes, I think it should be clear here. They're also headquartered in Sweden with sales and marketing in the US. So here they have a site called the Cirrus Hub where their intranet lives. So this is where all their 700 employees go to for their information. They have team pages, they have documentation for their processes. They also have an HR section and an internal help desk where employees can file tickets. They all have also chosen to show news of what's happening in the company. And they also have a module here where new hires can only see, where training documents are found. There's also nav icons that are surfaced to show the most relevant and most accessed information, for example. They've also chosen the main page to advertise their upcoming event in Vegas. As I mentioned before, they also have a sales and marketing team in the US, and they've chosen to have their separate site because the purpose for this audience is very specific to them. All the marketing materials, sales materials is mostly relevant for their team. So here they've chosen to expose common resources such as proposal documentation, training material, sales material, and they've also chosen to essentially have news as well on this site for their team. As a product company, they also have public support and documentation. So here, customers can go in, learn how to use the product, look for documentation, but they can also file a ticket, all on support.cirrus.com using a custom domain. So with Cirrus, they have 3 sites, and next year they're looking to put a 4th when they grow, because they're going to spawn up a new division. So hopefully what I was able to show is that with Refined, you can build purposeful sites for your audiences. So what are some motivations for having just one site? You may want to have this if you intend to have one main landing spot for your content, or if you have a very clear purpose for your audiences. So for example, if you just want to show documentation to your entire company, then that can exist on one site. And one site is also useful, the one-site approach, when you want to tie multiple use cases in one. So for example, you can have your intranet, you can have your documentation, you can have internal support, all on one Refined site. And to do that, of course, you need both Refined for Confluence Cloud and Refined for Jira Cloud, as they're pulling information from both of those products. And some motivations for multi-site are that you may want to separate your audiences that have unique needs. So as I alluded to before, you may have internal customers versus external. And it can also be due to geography, languages, and your organizational structure. You may also want to spawn multi-sites for the purpose of having special purpose sites. So these are temporary sites that are spawned for special purposes. And my colleague Raj is going to get more into this in a bit. So to end here, what I want to really emphasize is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to the number of sites. It's really going to depend on your organization and the factors that are important to you. Now, when I say there's no one-size-fits-all approach, that's also very true, because it can also come down to the individual who's building the sites, who may have a very strong philosophical or stylistic preference. So the tips that I've highlighted are only factors to consider. And at the end of the day, if you need more sort of consultation or more guidance and you're stuck regarding how many sites I should have, you can always contact us at support.refined.com. We're more than happy to help. We also have some resources on the blog that talk about content strategy. They also go into some pointers about the number of sites. And finally, as Emil alluded to, the design beta program is now available for sign up. And within that, there's also an opportunity to get consultations about site structuring, which is related to the number of sites. So I'll end here, and hopefully you have a better understanding, or at least some more information about what factors to consider when you are doing your site strategy. With that said, I'm going to hand it off to my wonderful colleague, Maria. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. So thank you, Eric. Great overview of what to consider when building sites and the possibilities that are in there. So now we're going to look in a little bit to how you can target your audience when you're building with Refined. IT systems like Jira and Confluence are all about collaboration and having one source of truth. But putting text into a tool is not enough. The experience needs to be engaging and, most of all, clear for the intended audience. Confluence is a great tool. I happily use it daily, and I put in all sorts of notes and information there. And as a content creator, there are many options to collaborate and curate my content. And the same goes for Jira. I'm one of the people who love Jira and what it can do. However, as a user on the consuming end, the one coming to look for information, coming to the Atlassian cloud, it's easy to get lost. The Confluence experience for getting information is searching either by using the search tool or by going to the space directory, finding your space, and then go through the space tree. This is one of the problems we've identified with Confluence. It's the consumer experience, your audience, the one who comes to look for information. In Confluence, all pages are equally highlighted, as you can see in the left-hand side of the page here. And apart from working with the page editor to add in links to the page, there's little room for guiding the user on where to go. But before moving forward, take a closer look at the page tree in this screenshot. All pages here regarding parental leave in this case is equally highlighted. So common occurrences like tending to sick kids is on the same level as requesting additional parental leave, which might be a little bit less recurring. With Refined, we make this smoother. We are adding a dimension to your information by letting you highlight important information and commonly used topics. One example of how we do this is layout pages. The refined layouts are introduced either tied to a space or a project, or they can be added in on their own. With this, you can surface the more common questions while keeping the browser experience intact. How is this adding another dimension? Well, if you look closely on this page, you can see that the buttons on the page are actually for creating requests on a service desk, while the pages on the right-hand side are the Confluence pages connected to the very top. Here's another example of how you can highlight important information. Consider a scenario where you want to push a message to all the employees via the intranet. So it's in regards to them growing their careers over the upcoming 6 months. First, we have the base material, the blog posts created in Confluence on a space with Cirrus, same company as Eric, where their employees can go and see the full blog series. Secondly, we've added in a news page. On this news page, we can have different types of news and surface different types of things we want to show. In this one, we have the blog series highlighted with pictures. And finally, we have this on the main page of the site. And this is made prominent by having a scrolling feature where they can see the blog posts again. It's the same base material, but it's shown in different ways and surfaced throughout the intranet. Another way we've made the experience more unified for the audience is that when you add a portal request URL link to a page, so something that you want to create in Jira Service Desk, it will automatically show up as a button, both in the text and on the top of the page. It will be in context of the page, and you don't need to navigate to a separate page, which is literally for convenience. Scrolling down, you can easily create your parental leave request in context of where you read about the information. As easy as this. On the topic of parental leave, this is something that is very specific to the country of where you happen to be working out of, which means that the audience for this message has different conditions. How can we make sure that the right message is sent to the right people, that it's not a one-size-fits-all experience? The world we live in grows smaller every day, and many of us have colleagues that are working out of many countries, which means that these days we need to be prepared to meet each person where they are at. Whether you're building an internal IT service desk or a knowledge base or a site where people can find specific information, you may be faced with having to present this in many languages. In this example, it's like Eric mentioned before. We have an intranet site that shows content in English and one intranet site that shows content in French. It's the same structure for both of the sites, but they differ in language. If you want to know how to build this, you are welcome to look around our support page or reach out to us to learn more. So building refined sites on top of your Confluence in Jira can help you make every person feel seen by giving them an extra layer of guidance. Now I will hand over the virtual mic to Janette.
Thank you, Maria. I might be showing a similar example how we're using the feature of creating those requests directly from the Confluence page. So fun to be here today, and it's so great to see so many people who want to know more about building sites with Refined. My name is Janette, I'm the COO at Refined, and today I will be talking about how we are using Refined at Refined. So at Refined, like probably many of you, we rely very heavily in Jira and Confluence in our daily work. We're using one cloud instance, but we have created over 10 sites with Refined for different purposes. Today, I will be showing 3 of these sites: our intranet site, our documentation site, and our support site. I will be explaining how we've used the product to build these sites with the different audiences and their different needs in mind. So we'll start off with our intranet. And just to give you some background context, we've been running our old intranet called Wiki for over 10 years on server before it was time to migrate to cloud. And over the years, we had assembled a lot of content. So when we started to go through all of it, we found some pages that were actually last updated in 2008. And I think many of you can probably relate to that. So this site is built for our employees. There is content from Confluence, Jira Service Management, and Jira. And when we started to create this new great intranet, we realized that there are two main things that we should be focusing on, and they are purpose and quality. So the purpose is to serve all employees, whether it's their first day at Refined or whether they've been with us for 10 years. It should be as easy as possible for everyone to find relevant content. And we've achieved this with carefully constructed navigation, using templated pages, and highlighting the most relevant pages with different navigation elements. And then when it comes to quality, well, I think you all know that there is always this challenge keeping everything up to date. So we've tried to overcome this by defining a content strategy and assigning content owners to make sure that the content gets updated. We've also tried to be very mindful about the amount of content, so it's a bit of a quality over quantity approach. So let's look at our intranet. So what you're seeing here is our actual intranet. So as you can see, the name of our intranet is Raine. So here we're using the custom domain raine.refined.com. And on the main landing page here, well, first of all, we have this very nice theme with that photo from our Malmö office. And then right here below, kind of front and center of it all, we have this section that is visible for new employees. So they are added into a specific user group, and then this section is visible just for them. This is one handy way of customizing the user experience. Then we have some links to important pages that we want to highlight, like the employee handbook and then company OKRs. And as we're scrolling further down, we have some company news here, as well as links to our external blogs. And if we scroll back to the top from here, you can see that the top navigation here is split between teams, life at Refined, and then a couple of others as well. But let's dive into the employee handbook. So here we have a couple of most frequently asked resources highlighted. So we have some employee benefits, vacation information, and IT policies. And then below here, we also have the entire page tree. But let's read more about vacations. So now what we're viewing is a regular Confluence page. So we have the page tree on the left-hand side and then the content on the right-hand side as usual. And here you can see that we've included a request type for vacation. And then you can also access it from this navigation here on the top, and then just click it to create a request. So let's create a vacation request. Okay, I'd like some time off in March, and then we're gonna pick some dates here. Let's do 30th until the 31st, and then we'll just create it. Okay, and as you can see, we're still on the same site because the request is created and the underlying JSM project is added into this refined site. And then I'll just quickly show you a Jira project. So this is our product feedback project, or PF as we like to call it. So here, all of our employees can easily search for existing issues in this project. We also have the issue types here, so you can easily create new issues, and then you can browse the existing feedback that has been given under here. Then the next site that I'm going to show is our documentation. So this is the same instance, the Confluence instance, as our intranet spaces are on, but we're exposing these spaces to a different refined site. We have a fairly extensive documentation. And one of the goals with this site is to make it as easy as possible to find the content that they're looking for, whether they're just getting started with our products or if they're already kind of experts. So this site is built for anyone who wants to know more about our products, and the content is from Confluence. So this is our documentation. Many of you might have seen it. This is docs.refine.com. So it's a bit simpler. There's the navigation on the top. And then we've also added these navigation elements to make it easier for the user to find the correct product as well as the correct hosting. So it's split between the hostings. And if we just explore now the Refine for Confluence Cloud documentation. So here you can see you can do searches here, and then we've also included some most used resources here. So we have the getting started guide, and then some information about layouting your refined pages and how to theme and customize your sites. And let's read more about theming and customizing your sites. So again, this is a Confluence page that we're looking at here, page 3 on the left-hand side. So this site and all the Confluence spaces here are available for anonymous users, but I'm an admin, so I can also edit the space settings. So if you've used our product on server or data center, you're already familiar with the space layouts. Here we have something a bit similar but more lightweight. So you can choose to hide and display authors. You can show the estimated read time. And then you can decide whether you want to show the sidebar, the search. And this is a public site. So you can just go to docs.refine.com and you can see it in more detail. Lastly, I will show you our support site. Some of you might have seen this already. So like many other Atlassian customers, we are using the Jira Service Management projects for our product support. And then we're using Confluence for the knowledge-based functionality. So this site is built for refined customers and for anyone who has questions about our products. And here we're utilizing Confluence and Jira Service Management. So this is the main landing page for our support site. And as you can see, this is yet another domain, so support.refine.com. Again, all the content here is from the same Jira and Confluence as the content on the previous sites. So let's explore the data center support from here. So now we're on a JSM portal page where we've added some helpful links. So let's read more about this log4j vulnerability here. So again, this is a regular Confluence page. And if we go back to the previous page, you can also see here below that we've added all the request types from this project, and they are split by the different groups. So it's easy to find the correct request type when you need to create a request. So I hope what I've shown you today has been useful and you've gotten some inspiration how you can build these different sites with Refine for different purposes. And yeah, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section and then I'll answer them at the end. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sehmi, and I'm going to talk a little bit about using refined sites for special purposes. So as we've talked about previously, Confluence and Jira are powerful tools in themselves, and they can be put to use for different diverse purposes. Sometimes these purposes could be things that aren't permanent use cases like what Janette showed us before, but they might be more immediate, sometimes even more temporary in nature. Using Refined, you can easily have this content housed in Confluence, for example, and then bring it even further by creating standalone sites for quite specific purposes. Let's talk about some examples of what these purposes could be. So we could have short-term project-specific sites that contain content pertaining to and bringing visibility to short-term projects. You could have information sites for different ongoing situations and happenings. And you can also have event sites for specific internal or external events, which you would like relevant stakeholders to be able to find information about. And these are just some of the examples. You can do much more depending on what your needs are. Using Refined, these special purpose sites are quick and easy to set up. The base content is created and managed in Atlassian and then served to the stakeholders via the Refined sites in a navigable, easy to consume format. The goal here is for the end users to be able to find exactly what they need to know on these sort of special purpose sites. And I'll show you a couple of examples. So to start off with, here we have a site built specifically for a short-term cross-team project. And the project is a website launch. The project involves different teams, such as devs, design, marketing, and more. And it's also being overseen by stakeholders outside these teams, so the management. The project is being managed in Jira, documented on Confluence. The challenge for stakeholders, especially non-technical stakeholders, is to get a full picture of what the project status is and what the progress looks like. So this one-off Refined site serves the purpose of bringing visibility to the project in an easy-to-use and navigate UI. Here's the main site home, and on this landing page, we've used some modules from Confluence, like the project documentation, or to show content from project documentation rather. And we have some Jira modules that are filtered down with different filters to show different issues. The end user can quite easily access, for example, the project plan by clicking on the navigation module, and then they get this Confluence page that contains all the information covering the project itself. This makes it a lot easier since they don't need to dig around to find this information. Each work area involved also has a dedicated landing page. And on this landing page for design, for example, here you can get an overview of all the different areas with design, so the different design issues in an easy to consume format. The end user can also see all the issues that they are involved with under their avatar menu. They can browse through these, and they can also action these as needed, all from the same site. Here's another example of a one-off site for a specific purpose. Here, it's created to provide information to employees about an upcoming office relocation. The content is being housed in a Confluence space, and the challenge is being able to present this content in a clear and navigable way, allowing users to access the pages from this space that might be most useful for them quickly and easily, and also giving them some access to external resources that they might need. So as mentioned, it's a single space site. So in the site builder, we have only added one Confluence space. And we have chosen to not show this space in the navigation menu, but rather we're building out the navigation and the structure using menu folders, subfolders under that, and links under each of these. And the entire hierarchy or the site builder structure is built using these items, so the menu folders and links. The links themselves are pointing to different Confluence pages from the space that we've added to the site. And let's see what this looks like. So the top navigation here, as you can see, reflects the same as what we've seen in the site builder with the links and menu folders. You can choose to create this hierarchy in the site builder to be as complex as you like or as simple as you like, depending on the specific purpose of your site. Here on the main site home, we've added in a search bar that users can use to search for information. we have some FAQs in a linked list on the left. And then on the right, we have some navigation icons to resources, both internal and external. Right at the top, we're making use of Refine's announcement banners to easily and visually communicate important information. And on the Confluence page view, we have the page tree on the left that the user can browse through. And they can also use the search to search for information they're looking for. Finally, here's a real live example of a special purpose site. This is the one that we've built for the upcoming Team 22 event, as well as for this webinar. You can access this at team22.refine.com. On this site, we have sublinks where you can register to find out more about our design consultation, as Emil talked about. You can also book a time to meet with us at Team 22 in Las Vegas, view some get started resources. And after this webinar, we'll also upload the content presented here to this site. So be sure to check it out. The link once again is team22.refine.com. All right, next, I'm going to talk a little bit about replacing legacy platforms with refined sites. So when thinking about IT tools and services, there are numerous applications and platforms available for organizations to make use of for diverse purposes. A lot of these applications are built to be highly specialized and built for fulfilling a particular need. This definitely has its benefits, since it's understandably difficult to find one-size-fits-all apps for different diverse needs. This can, however, result in legacy platforms that have been there for a long time within an organization, even though they've been serving a particular purpose for a long time. This also has its downsides, the most obvious one being the cost of subscribing to and maintaining multiple platforms and apps for different diverse needs. The costs in this sense are both financial, since you need to pay for each of the platforms, but also administrative, as each platform needs to be administered and maintained. Related to this is also the problem of paying for an app or platform that is underutilized, thereby tricky to justify the costs for. And this is where the idea of replacing these legacy platforms comes in. In the case of Confluence and Jira, these are powerful and flexible base platforms that can be used for multiple diverse purposes. And the power of refined sites can be used to take this even further. You're able to do more for less. Replacing legacy platforms means saving costs, both financial and administrative, and putting the existing Atlassian stack to use for more than what you might have initially procured this for. And then using sites on Refined, you can bring all the diverse content created and housed within Confluence and Jira to life and make this content relevant, accessible, and actionable for stakeholders both internally and externally. This is an interesting area that we've heard of from our customers. They sometimes come to Atlassian and Refined for one specific purpose or use case, but then with the flexibility afforded to them by Atlassian plus Refined, it's easy that they realize quickly that they can retire some of the legacy platforms that they might have in place and move those use cases into refined sites. Here's one example of what this could look like. So if you have a company already using Confluence and Refined, they're using this for an intranet site. However, they're also maintaining a documentation site on a legacy platform outside of Confluence and need to spend resources on maintaining and administering this. It's quite easy to move the documentation into Confluence instead of using the legacy system. By doing this, they're making more use of their Confluence subscription as well as Refined subscription and use that platform for both uses. All the while, this move is also saving them the cost of paying for the legacy platform, since that can now be retired, and also eliminate redundancy. Here's a visual example of what this could look like. So having your documentation on WordPress, for example, it does serve its purpose, of course, but it has its costs in terms of being a separate platform that needs to be paid for and maintained. And here's the same documentation now moved into Confluence, presented on a dedicated documentation site with Refined. The end users are still getting the same content served in a customizable and themed UI, And they get a pleasant experience with hopefully minimal disruption from the move. And for the admin, it's one less platform to think about, pay for, and administer. And they can get more value out of their Confluence and Refine subscriptions. On that note, I'll hand the mic back to Philip.
Thank you, Raj, and thank you to all of our presenters. We got some great questions in during the presentations, so we're going to go through some of them now. If we don't get to your question, like I said, we'll do our best to answer it on the Team 22 site we've been talking about. So first one is for you, Emil. When you talked about the design consultation, are those only for cloud customers, or are they also for customers that continue with Confluence and server or DC? And let me unmute you so you can answer.
Thank you, Philip. So our design consultation is for all our customers. So it means both for server, data center, and also, of course, cloud. So feel free to apply.
Great. And then another one for you, Emil, the upcoming in-page table of contents feature. Can you configure it in any way? For example, the titles or which heading levels to include, whether to include manually defined related links. Do we have those details ironed out yet?
So in the first version we are releasing, it's going to automatically just take the title headings, but this is definitely an interesting improvement area. So to look how you can actually configure it a bit. So that's great feedback, but in the first version, it's going to just take the titles that are on the page. And Eric, please correct me if I was wrong there.
Spot on.
One more for you, Emil. Will what we are covering today also work for Jira, Confluence, Refine, Server, or Data Center? I know we've been showing mostly cloud, all cloud.
Yeah, so the focus on this webinar have been cloud, but the general concepts and tactics on how you can create sites applies, of course, on data center as well. Data center is a much more mature product, and for example, site switcher and those kind of features are already built in. There is one difference, of course, that Jira and Confluence are on two different servers on-prem. And in cloud, it's easier to create this sort of seamless experience where you also have Confluence and Jira content really living in the same site. So that is only cloud only. But the feedback feature and TOC feature, that is for cloud that we have presented.
Great. And then we have one for you, Eric. What is the main difference or need to have Refine for both Confluence and Jira?
When we're talking about differences, one fundamental difference is that if you have Refine for Confluence Cloud and you have a site, Refine site, you're only able to show Confluence content. So if you want to show sort of Jira issues or have users create requests, then you need also Refine for Jira Cloud. And there's certainly a benefit to having both, as you can tie in sort of multiple use cases. And as Emil alluded to, make it a more seamless experience for the end users, where they don't have to navigate to sort of the Atlassian platform to create a request, or for example, in one of the demo sites that we showed to give product feedback, they're staying on sort of one site.
Great. Okay, and then we have one last for, let's see, Raj or Maria, whoever wants to take this for data center product, currently there is a limitation of only one blog site per refined instance, yes? My use case would be multiple sites by territory and each has its own individually themed blog site associated with it. Any thoughts on this?
I can take this one. So you can easily add blog spaces to separate sites if it's on data center. If it's on cloud, you can add the same space to multiple sites or keep separate spaces that have blogs on them and emulate a blog site by using the news module with different filters. If you want more information on how you can build that out, please reach out to us via support and we'll happily guide you through.
Okay, thank you, Raj. If we didn't get to your question, again, we'll do our best to answer it on our Team 22 site. So for those of you who are headed to Vegas to Team 22, we hope to see you there. Drop by our booth, it's number 22. And we'll also have a dedicated room for one-on-one demos and consultations. We can take a look at your setup, make recommendations. You can also just come by to say hi, grab some swag. We'd love to see you. But everything you need to engage with us in Vegas is on that site we showed you, team22.refined.com. But thank you all for joining us. Keep an eye out for the recording, and we hope to see you in Vegas at Team 22 if you're headed there. Thanks, everyone.